Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette in our series, Is It Worth It? Today we discuss Canada Goose Jackets, and if you've missed it, we also did one on Moncler Jackets, which you can check out right here. In recent years, Canada Goose transitioned from a smaller brand focusing on functional wear to a very stylish brand that became extremely popular. As a consequence, their flagship jacket, which I'm wearing here right now, costs around $1,000. And so we want to know, is it really worth that money? And how does it compare to other well-known jackets such as the Moncler ones? So before we talk about the jacket and its features, let's look at the brand Canada Goose. Just like many others in this space, it started out as a very functional brand for outdoor gear. It was founded by the Polish immigrant Zamak in 1957. Interestingly, it wasn't named Canada Goose, but Metro Sportswear. They started producing down jackets in the 1970s, but they were primarily focused on jackets for rangers and the police. By 1985, they decided to produce jackets under their own brand, which at the time was called Snow Goose, not Canada Goose. At the time, they also manufactured private label jackets for companies like LL Bean or Eddie Bauer. They were growing slowly, and in the early 90s, they expanded to Europe. Unfortunately, someone else was already using the term Snow Goose, so they switched their branding to Canada Goose. Even though they were forced to change the name, it proved beneficial because of the positive association with really cold Canadian climate. In 2001, Danny Rees took over as a CEO from his father at Canada Goose. At the time, a lot of companies were still shifting production overseas, but he said, no, we're going to produce in Canada. At the same time, he began pushing the products internationally, and especially in Europe, people didn't question the high price tag because they associated it was a luxury high-end product. Ironically, the brand Canada Goose flew pretty much under the radar up until about 2010. The brand undertook an aggressive product placement strategy using celebrities such as Daniel Craig. Of course, that was also reflected in their revenue. The company went from $18 million a year to a multiple of that, selling a 70% share for $250 million in 2013. By then, Canada Goose had become so popular that model Kate Upton wore a jacket on the Sports Illustrated cover swimsuit edition. Today, Canada Goose continues to focus on quality and domestic Canadian production. Because of the relatively high price tag, it's a darling with higher-end department stores who regularly sell out of these jackets. The Canada Goose product lineup has steadily increased and now includes lighter weight jackets as well as pants and other outerwear things. Of course, with the popularity of the Canada Goose brand, also a lot of counterfeit jackets popped up on the market, just like with Moncler. They also use an authentication system, making sure that if you pay top dollar, you get the real thing and not a knockoff. Just like Moncler, Canada Goose is now a status symbol, and so we really want to look into it, whether the jacket is actually functional and worth your money. So I'm wearing here the Canada Goose Emory Slim Fit Parka jacket with a coyote trim. In terms of colors, they're less flashy than Moncler, and I chose an olive green. The first thing that distinguishes the jacket visually from the Moncler one is the genuine coyote fur trim. Canada Goose claims that it has a functional purpose in the sense that it creates more turbulent air around your face, thus preventing frostbite more than a jacket without the trim. The company claims that the coyote fur is ethically sourced and trapped in Canada. Now, trapping is always difficult and painful for the animals, so I know a few people who would question that claim. The next thing that stands out is the material. It is matte and it's a lot thicker than the Moncler jacket. Also, and I find it quite unpleasant, it makes a lot of noise when you walk. Just listen. The material is made out of 85% polyester and 15% cotton. It's water resistant, durable, and hard wearing, as well as wind resistant. It's not quite gore-tex membrane material, but it's definitely thick and much stiffer than what you get from Moncler. That being said, nylon is typically a higher-end artificial fiber than polyester. In my opinion, the stiffness of the fabric is directly felt on the entire jacket, and I know people who have compared the jacket to wearing an X-ray vest at the dentist's office. Another difference to a Moncler jacket are the ribbed cuffs, which I find quite useful because they prevent cold air from coming in. The jacket features an abundance of pockets, has lots of Zamak metal snap buttons that are plastic covered. Of course, all branded. The zipper is an injection molded plastic from YKK. It's the Michelin model, and ironically, it's the same one used at the Moncler Jackets. For some reason though, I find it a lot harder to close. So for a jacket that retails for $1,000, I would have expected a higher end zipper made out of machined metal and not just an average YKK product that I can get on Amazon for about $6. Even though the brand is called Canada Goose, the actual filling of this jacket consists of duck down feathers, which are inferior to goose down. So what's the difference between goose down and duck down? Well, goose down comes in larger clusters, usually traps the air better, which means you get a higher fill power and more insulating with a goose than duck. Because this jacket uses duck down, it's not surprising that it has a fill power of 625. Again, low-end fill power would be 300, high-end fill power would be 900. So this jacket sits right somewhere in the middle. It consists of 80% down and 20% feathers, which is not as good as the Moncler jacket, which is 90% goose down and 10% feathers, but both are not as good as other jackets on the market that have 93% goose down. To learn more about down, quality levels, fill power, and ethical issues, please check out the Moncler video here. Unlike Moncler, Canada Goose has a warmth grading method which is called TEI, or Thermal Experience Index. That will help you to find a jacket that is best suited for your needs and your environment and the level of coolness you experience. For example, this Emory Slim Fit Parka is rated as a 4 out of 5, and it's rated to -5 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which is quite cold. Personally, I think it's not quite as warm as the Moncler jackets we had, but it's a lot heavier. It is also much stiffer to wear. It is longer in the torso, meaning it keeps you a little warmer, making up for a bit of the inferior fill power. Also, if you compare the jackets visually, it's a lot less puffy and you don't look like a Michelin Man in a garbage bag, unlike with a Moncler jacket. So now the big question, is the Canada Goose Emory jacket worth $995? Well, let's look at the pros and cons. The construction of the Canada Goose jacket seems more rugged and sturdy. Frankly, I don't wear these jackets enough to really figure out a difference, because when I go skiing, I layer up because that allows me to get exactly the right heat level for the temperature outside, and I'm more flexible. This Arctic tech fabric is definitely more sturdy than the nylon one from Moncler, and I think over time it will wear better. Unlike Moncler, Canada Goose comes with a lifetime warranty. However, that sounds better than it actually is, because it's just a warranty against manufacturing defects. It's definitely a quality parka. It has a real fur trim. It has a fill power of 625, and it keeps you warm and is well thought through. At the same time, the jacket also has a bunch of downsides. One big one for me is the sound it creates and the noise it makes when I walk. I find it simply unpleasant. Secondly, it's heavier than the Moncler jacket, which is not so great in my opinion, but more importantly, it's simply too stiff for my tastes. Also, keep in mind that you can find warmer jackets with a higher fill power for about half the price of this Canada Goose. Overall, it's pretty expensive, even though it's $200 less expensive than the Moncler jacket. But at the end of the day, I don't find any of those jackets really stylish, because this one is very shiny and puffy. This one is less puffy, but it's so stiff and it just makes me feel like a very unstylish person. So if you really care for style, go with a heavy overcoat that will keep you just as warm in the city. At the same time, you will look a lot better. That being said, I think this jacket is overkill for most people out there, unless they live in extreme conditions. And even if you live in extreme conditions, there are better jackets out there that are better suited for you for a lower price, but they don't come with a brand cachet of Canada Goose. So it's definitely not worth the money for people who want a super warm jacket or something that is lightweight and puffy and stylish. If you enjoyed this Is It Worth It video, make sure to check out the other ones in our series. I'm sure you'll like them as well. Want to be notified about new videos in the series? Just hit the subscribe button and then that little bell so stuff like this comes right to your inbox. In today's video, I'm wearing, of course, a Canada Goose Emory Slim Fit Parka, and the zipper really sucks. It's hard to get it closed, especially if you're in a hurry. I'm pairing it with a blue pair of jeans and brown insulated fur-lined boots from Allen Edmonds. I chose those because they're very noisy, and between the squeaking of my shoes and the sounds I get from my jacket, I'm just a very loud person that day. Unlike with the Moncler jacket, the hood is permanently attached on a Canada Goose, and it's a lot more functional because of the fur trim. You can really tell that the hair keeps your face warmer than without the trim. In terms of value, one could argue that Canada Goose is better because it has more details, it's more functional, and will likely wear longer than the Moncler jacket. That being said, the increased weight, the stiffness of the fabric in combination with a pain-in-the-ass zipper, I don't think $995 are a good value for this parka. So what are good alternative brands? Please check out our in-depth guide on the website here.